All right, so number 4 on this little half sheet says 3 forces are exerted on a central ring. So this is number 4. So draw your XY axis. And so it says the first force is 200 newtons acting at an angle of 45 degrees. So 45 is here. It's 200 newtons, so F1 equals 200 newtons, and this angle is 45 degrees. So F1 is going to have two components. It's going to have an F1x, and it's going to have an F1y. Okay? The next force is 100 newtons acting at 195 degrees. So this negative x-axis is 180, so 195 will be down here. This is F2, it's just 100 newtons. This angle in here then is going to be 15, right? Because if it's 180 to there, then 15 more. This will be F2x, and this will be F2y. Okay? And the third one is also 100 newtons, but at an angle of 255. So 255 is going to be down here. This is F3, 100 newtons. This angle in here will be 15 degrees. 255 and 15 would take you to 270, which is what the negative y is. So this is F2y, and this is 3, I can count well, and F3x. Okay, so it wants the net force. So to get the net force, we need to find all the forces in the axis and then add them up, taking into account their directions, and then all the forces in the y and add them up, taking into account their directions. So starting with F1, the x is the adjacent side, so it would be cosine. So cos of 45 will equal F1x over the hypotenuse, which is 200 newtons. So F1x is equal to 200 newtons cos of 45. Cos of 45 is 0.707, so times 200 should be 141.42 newtons. And when you look at it, it's going to the right. So I'm going to do square bracket right here. Okay, while we're here, we may as well do the y. The y is the opposite side, so it's going to be sine of 45 will be equal to F1y over 200 newtons. So F1y will equal 200 newtons sine of 45. And you might know that sine and cos of 45 are the same. So when you do this with your calculator, you should get 141.42 newtons. And this time, though, it will be up. Okay, so that's my F1x and my F1y. So now switching to my F2, the x side is the adjacent side, so it's going to be cosine again. So cos of 15 this time is equal to F2x, that's an x, I swear, over 100 newtons. So F2x is equal to 100 newtons times the cos of 15. Type this into your calculator to find out that the x component of this triangle is 96.59 newtons, and it is going left. Okay, now we need to find the y. If the x component is the adjacent side, the y must be the opposite side, which will be sine. So sine of 15 is equal to F2y over 100 newtons. So F2y is equal to 100 newtons times the sine of 15. Punch this into your calculator and get an F2y to be 25.88 newtons, and it is going down. Okay, so that's your F2y. So now F3. F3x is the opposite side here, so it will be sine. So sine of 15 will equal F3x over 100 newtons. So F3x is equal to 100 newtons times the sine of 15. Punch this into your calculator and get an F3x of 25.88 newtons. Which way is it going? Left. Okay, and now the y. The y is the adjacent side, so it needs to be cosine. So cos of 15 is equal to F3y over 100 newtons. So F3y is equal to 100 newtons cos of 15. So F3y is going to equal, when you punch it in, 96.59 newtons. And it is going down. Okay, so now we have our three components. So we need to add them up in the x direction. We need to add them up in the y. So looking at the x, you have a right, a left, and a left. So it's going to be the net in the x direction is going to be 141.42 newtons minus 96.59 newtons minus 25.88 newtons. Okay, and when you do that, you get a total, and sometimes instead of sum of the force, instead of F net, we might write sigma x to mean sum of in the x direction, just so I don't have a whole sentence as a subscript here. It means exactly the same thing, and we'll talk about it in class the next time I see you. So when you add these up, you get 18.947 newtons, ends up being positive, which means it's to the right. Now we're going to add up the y's. So in the y's, you have 141 going up, a 25.88 going down, and a 96.59 going down. So the F net in the y is going to be 141.42 newtons minus 25.88 newtons minus 96.59 newtons. You might recognize these numbers. They might look an awful lot like our x's. So the total, or the net, in the y direction is also 18.947 newtons. It works out to be positive, which means it's going up. So now that you have your 2 in the x and in the y, you're going to draw them. So you have a vector that's 18.947 newtons to the right, and a vector that is 18.974 newtons up. And so our resultant, if I only had a different color, oh, I do, red. Our resultant will be here. And you're going to square them, add them together, and take the square root. And when you do, you should get an overall F net of 26.796 newtons. And look at these two sides. They're the same. This is a right angle triangle. So this must be 45 degrees. So our F net then would equal 26.796 newtons. And giving it the same way as we were given in the question, we would say at an angle of 45 degrees, means coming off the the positive x-axis. Okay, and number 4 is done. I'll do a separate video for the next one.